Hi, I'm Dan, and I just watched In the Dark Season 1, Episode 3, The Big Break, which has some funny connotations to it. This was a really cool episode, and I'm about to spoil the crap out of it. This show continues to blow my mind with just how much I enjoy it. As I've said in previous reviews, I never thought that I'd like the show as much as I do, and I really hope that it's building an audience and that they get a season 2, because I mean, I do think this episode has some issues, which I'll get into, but overall, man, it was so good. And we're going to start with what I thought was some of the best stuff, which was Max and Murphy. And they're doing such a good job of making me like this couple because Murphy is just not the usual romantic lead. And it's not just that she, is, oh, I don't want to, I just want to have sex, I'm a playgirl or whatever you want to call it. It's how awkward she is and how snarky she is, and the way they write the comedy and the way they write the characters and the chemistry between the two leads. And Murphy is just a character that I'm falling in love with watching her. She's just consistently funny, consistently interesting. And her interactions with Max were great. Starting off with the bar scene, and them having their first few kisses, and then getting to the big I'm not gonna fall for him scene where they have the sex. And it was just a really great scene. It was a super long, hot sex scene, but it also had some really good, funny bookends, both at the beginning with her being like, oh, why don't you know how to do this? And him being like, oh, I've never done this before, and all that stuff, and then ending with the penis break. They went in and out of the romance and the humor so well. And he just plays it really well. He's a very likable leading guy here. And then him sort of sticking around, her not knowing what to do with it, and the next day her coming back and him asking how her day was, and her reaction was priceless. And then I think they did the argument and the her pushing him away thing well. And then again, sort of, I'm just gonna tie up this storyline, the tying it back and her trying to be like, okay, maybe I'll try this dating thing. I've never really dated before, and her doing so badly with the sock and telling him that she slept with somebody else. I'm just excited to see these two characters move forward and doing that, knowing, as they say, that they're both kind of bad news. They're playing with fire here, but I'm excited to see, the chemistry grow and the characters grow, and it's a really cool relationship. But moving on from the lovey-doveys, let's talk about the, I guess, maybe a plot of this episode, the Felix stuff, right? So Felix is interesting. I've talked a lot in my first two reviews about how much I love the supporting cast, and I will say that so far he had, leading into this episode, been actually my weakest link, that he felt a little bit cliche or just not a full person. And this episode, on his level, I'm sort of torn about. It definitely gave him more to do, and I think they tried to make him more likable, but it was kind of an uneven thing there for me because while I think that I'm getting to like the actor a little bit more, the character is weird. They're trying to make me sympathetic for him, but at the same time they're having him pretend to be blind, and then we're supposed to feel bad for him when people make fun of him for it. That's a weird thing messaging wise, because it would be one thing if it was he felt really bad about it and he, got called out and he felt like shit because he knew he did a bad thing. But it felt more focused on, oh, I've, being made fun of in high school again. It's all your fault, Murphy. I got made fun of again. And it's so, that didn't really particularly endear me to him. Him interacting with Murphy at the end where they're smoking together, that endears me to him just because I like Murphy, and whenever Murphy's liking someone a little bit more, I like them a little bit more. And the whole idea of oh, maybe you should, you're letting people bully you too much, maybe you should fight back. That kind of didn't ring true to me because he consistently fights back against Murphy, who is the main person we've seen, quote unquote, bully him. So that felt a little strange to me, and I'm a little iffy on that character. That being said, I do think a lot of things that were positive came out of this plotline. I liked that they were able to mix the ongoing plotline of looking into Tyson's murder with her actual job this episode, and that we got that great scene in the bathroom with the two teenage girls. I thought a lot of great dialogue came from that. I think the three of them had some great chemistry. as actresses. And writing wise, I think it was some of the best stuff from Murphy. That said, I did think it was a little bit odd they spent this time talking about how she looked to her. On the one hand, it felt like interesting and in general idea to be like, oh, she doesn't know how she looks. But Jess is her best friend. Jess, I really believe, would have talked to her about how she looked. I believe she would have asked Jess how she looks. I, I believe Jess would ask. Like, I don't know. It felt weird, and especially it sort of to me highlights the fact that like this is a CW show, and so you don't really want to question too much how this blind girl looks like as stunningly model-esque, like beautiful makeup, beautiful eyebrows, beautiful hair all the time. And like, not to say that you can't look like that, but like, my reasoning, if I'm going to give a canon reason, would be that like Jess helps her out a lot with this stuff because that seems like the kind of thing that the show has set up. And so if Jess does help her with this stuff, then that whole scene kind of seems a little silly because like, of course she knows what she looks like because Jess helps her out. And if Jess doesn't help her out and she's able to maintain herself without Jess, I think we should probably see that a little bit more. So that, it's just a little thing. It's not a huge deal. But then that also leads into her having sex with the teacher and the comedy that comes out of all the students seeing her naked and her not realizing that's what's happening. And I'm interested to see what other people think about this because the show is consistently combining like humor around her blindness and humor around sex. And so you could be like, oh, this is like a sexual humorous moment. But it's also sort of joking about, it's using that in conjunction with her blindness to make jokes around her blindness. And I'm talking about this, and I'm also talking about in the pilot when, she's hiding under a clear table and all that. I don't know how I feel about it because I mean, there's certainly something that innately wants me to go like, oh, you shouldn't be making jokes about her blindness and like putting her in these like ridiculous situations where people look down on her because of her blindness or whatever. At the same time, it is a humorous show, and I don't want to say that you can't find humor in any of this stuff, and it's more inventive than her just like bumping into things all the time, which is what you get a lot of stupid blind jokes about. So it's interesting, and I feel like they do enough positive stuff to sort of balance it out with a lot of more, more intense, interesting representational stuff. So for me, I guess I'm in a middle zone, but I'm interested to see what other people think, if they think I'm being a little too harsh on that or not. I understand, like, it was a funny, crazy sequence, and especially how that led to Felix being found out. It was interesting. It was a clever, comedic beat. Before I get out of the whole high school stuff, though, I do want to talk about how much I love that this show is just like living in the real world. We have people smoking pot, we have people smoking cigarettes. These are things that you just don't see enough of on TV. Not to say like I need tons of it or anything, but it just makes them feel lived in, and it makes the show feel free of censorship and real and like it wants to talk to you on, the reality level. And I like that, and I like how much they get into sexual comedy and how, as we're leading into the next plot line, the fact that they're gonna have a whole storyline about a girl's first period. Like, seeing that on a CW show, I think is great, and I really appreciated that they went through this story because it was a little, like, they did a good job of combining the humor and sort of a bit of a heartbreak and how that could be scary and daunting for a young girl, especially a young blind girl. And that's like, seeing the story of a blind girl's first period, that's really fascinating, and that's not a story that I thought I would see. So I think that the whole cop storyline here, that cop, I thought was really well done. I think that the fact that they have an actual blind actress doing all this makes it all the better. Her interactions with Murphy are, part of the greatest parts of the show. And so that whole storyline I thought was really well done. But I do want to talk about the cop in a little bit more detail here. So he likes Murphy. I didn't see that coming at all before this episode. I don't know if other people have been shipping it or picking up on little scenes or whatever, but I just totally saw them, in two different age brackets. I saw them as like, Batman and Gordon, he was the lost side of her vigilante justice, and I liked how they were sort of combative with each other and poking fun at each other. And yeah, okay, I guess you can make that into something potentially romantic or unrequited love, or are they just creating like an actual love triangle where he's the good boy and Max is the bad boy? I don't know, but Personally, I'm not seeing it yet, and I don't really wish that they had gone down that path for him. I understand why Chloe would want that for them, but for me, I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about it. We'll see. Maybe they'll change my mind. That's just me. Let me know if you disagree. It's hard not to just love the fuck out of Max and Murphy right now. So, but maybe they'll change my mind. Who knows? Let's talk a little bit before I end out here about the ongoing case. So we have Darnell interacting with Tyson's mom here, trying to sort of quell her worries, in some ways get her off his back. He borrows some money from Max to sort of be like, oh, I'll take care of you, but we can't, be poking into Tyson too much. And that's an interesting thing here where like you're seeing some layers to Darnell where, he's doing some shady and douchey stuff, but like he's also worried for his own safety. He doesn't want to be vanished. And so we have this higher up person that he saw in prison last week. It's an interesting thing building here, and I think they're doing a really good job of each episode building in, like, here's the goal this episode for the next breadcrumb that we're going to move on. And, of course, we have this episode that Murphy finally talks to Tyson's girlfriend, only to find out that Tyson might have been cheating on her, which I'm still not sure if that's actually true. So now we're off to find another person. And so, I like how they lay these steps out. And it'll be interesting to see, if Tyson really isn't the person that Murphy thought he was. I think we're going to have something in the middle where he still is at his core a good person, as we saw with the whole mugging thing. But there is more layers to who he is and what his life was. But I'm excited to see where that goes. I'm excited for the rest of the season. I hope you've been enjoying these reviews. I've reviewed all 3 episodes now. I'm going to hopefully keep reviewing them. I'm not getting a ton of views, but I care about the show and I want people to talk about it and to interact with people who like the show. So please, leave comments down below. Please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're doing okay.